UFC Vancouver, October 18th at the Rogers Arena in Vancouver, Canada. Middleweight contenders Reiner de Ridder and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. De Ridder is ranked number 5, came into the UFC, a former 2-division champion and 1 championship. He's undefeated in UFC, and obviously he's beat Bo Nickel, former champ Rob Whittaker. This dude has fought 4 times this year, and he's looking for his 5th win in 2025. I love guys that fight that much. I love it. And he's taking on 6th ranked Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy's on an 8-fight win streak 2 weeks ago. He had an incredible performance of the night win over Roman. 12 of his 15 wins have come by finish. That is a badass fight. And obviously next month in Paris, we have another top middleweight contender fight between number 2 ranked Imavov and 7th ranked Bohalyo.
Yeah, it's been a bad couple of years. The stress I've been put through, the stress my family's been put through, to even just get fights, it hasn't been nice. And this is something. It's hard for me to talk bad because I've had a couple good years at one as well. In the beginning, they treated me well, but over the last couple of years, it's been really bad. And this is something.
In the main event, it's a 5-round fight between middleweight contenders Reiner de Ridder and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. De Ridder is ranked number 5, came into the UFC, a former 2-division champion and 1 championship. He's undefeated in UFC, and obviously he's beat Bo Nickel, former champ Rob Whittaker. This dude has fought 4 times this year, and he's looking for his 5th win in 2025. I love guys that fight that much. I love it. And he's taking on 6th ranked Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy's on an 8-fight win streak 2 weeks ago. He had an incredible performance of the night win over Roman. 12 of his 15 wins have come by finish. That is a badass fight. The low-hanging fruit that's easy to answer, bonuses are obviously going up. That'll be big. And forget about the tide rising with all the other fighters. I mean, just the number that the bonuses bring to a fighter is, millions of dollars.
We'll start with the main event. Incredible energy in the crowd, incredible fight itself. Hamzat's performance, was unbelievable. Yeah. Give us your takeaway of it. And did you see before this fight that being the possible way it was going to play out?
No. The lead up to this fight, I said, I bet the main event is the fight of the night. Didn't see that coming, but not shocked either. I mean, you go in and dominate the way that he dominated. If you can do it the first round, more than likely going to do it the second and throughout the rest of the...
Dana White just flipped the fight game upside down with a string of announcements that nobody saw coming. For years, fans have begged the UFC to deliver a month that felt historic, a stretch of cards so stacked you couldn't miss a single Saturday. Well, that time has finally arrived, because October is officially shaping up to be the most insane month in MMA history. We're talking about multiple stacked fight nights, 2 pay-per-views loaded with killers, and a #1 contender fight that could finally set up Hamzat Chimaev's next opponent. But here's the twist. Rumors are already swirling that the UFC purposely kept Hamzat out of October to make this play even bigger. And when you hear the names involved, it's clear why fans are calling this lineup one of the craziest we've ever seen. First, Hernandez versus Reiner de Ridder, the shock announcement. Dana White didn't waste any time. He handed us the news straight up. Anthony Hernandez will face Reiner de Ridder in Vancouver, headlining in October. And just like that, the UFC avoided a bland contender fight between Imavov and Barrow, which many felt lacked star power. But here's where it gets crazier. This isn't just a fight. It's being framed as the real #1 contender bout, the one that fans will actually care about. For months, people wondered if Hamzat might jump back in October after hinting at it in his post-fight press conference. But the UFC didn't call his bluff. Instead, they're building Hernandez and de Ridder into legitimate challengers. The reason this is happening is simple. Hamzat is so dominant that you need a special kind of opponent to make it interesting, and Hernandez has the X factor that UFC brass seems desperate to build around.
What did you think of his performance?
Who did you say?
Anthony Hernandez.
Yeah. I was surprised with that fight at how big the odds were. You know what I mean? That he was that much of a favorite in the fight. And when the fight started, Allen looked like the odds makers were very wrong, but it flipped and turned around, and yeah, he won a big fight tonight, beating Allen. Definitely a madman.
What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's fascinating, that's for sure.
2nd October is already the best month in UFC history. Stacked fight nights are rare. 2 stacked fight nights in the same month? Almost unheard of. Add 2 pay-per-views on top, and you've got history in the making. UFC Vancouver and UFC Rio are loaded, while UFC 320 and Aspinall versus Gany headline the pay-per-view stretch. Fans have spent months complaining about shallow undercards, but October is proof that the UFC was holding back to unleash everything at once. But listen to this, when you line these cards up back-to-back, there might not be a single weak Saturday. Vancouver gives us Hernandez versus De Ridder, Zahabi versus Vera, and Kevin Holland versus Mike Malott. Rio throws Figueiredo, Montel Jackson, Luque, and Ponzinibbio into the mix. And UFC 320 brings Ankalaev versus Pereira, Merab versus Corey, and more. The UFC didn't just load one card, they gave us an entire month of chaos. 3. Hidden fights fans aren't talking about enough. While the headlines focus on Hernandez, Aspinall, and Pereira, there are sleeper fights that could steal the show. Ayman Zahabi versus Marlon Vera isn't just a bantamweight clash, it's a fight that could determine who stays relevant and who sinks to the bottom of the rankings. Kevin Holland against Mike Malott is another sneaky banger. Holland's frustrating, rangy style versus Malott's technical approach could end violently. But that's not all. Davidson Figueiredo is stepping in against Montel Jackson, and that's a crossroads fight. Figgy is a legend at flyweight, but faces questions at bantamweight after Sanhagen exposed him. Meanwhile, Jackson is trying to prove he's more than just a forgotten dark horse. These aren't just filler fights, they're make-or-break moments that could reshape divisions. 4th, Patchy Mix versus Jacob Wicklach, the hardcore hype war. Now, let's talk about the matchup that has hardcore fans buzzing. Patchy Mix was hyped as the next big thing, but after Mario Bautista embarrassed him, the UFC is making him start over. His opponent? Jacob Wicklach, a Polish prospect carrying massive hype from European circuits. On paper, he's the new darling of hardcore fans who love to push unknown names into the spotlight. But here's the kicker. A lot of that hype might be smoke. Wicklach is primarily a grappler with average striking, while Mix is desperate to prove he still belongs. It gets worse. If Mix loses this one, it won't just derail his career, it could end his UFC run entirely. The UFC clearly wants to test whether the hype is real, but the pressure is all on Mix. And that pressure might be heavier than anything he's faced inside the cage. 5th, Tom Aspinall vs. Cyril Gane, Return of the Destroyer. The heavyweight division closes October with Tom Aspinall's return against Cyril Gane. On paper, this is massive. But here's the problem. Aspinall is almost too dominant. His quick knockouts often feel anticlimactic, and without John Jones, Pereira, or Ankalaev across the cage, his fights risk feeling one-sided. The reason this is happening is because the UFC needs him active, but they're struggling to find him true rivals. But listen to this. If Aspinall steamrolls Gane in 2 minutes, fans will start demanding Jones immediately. The UFC can't afford to waste his prime on squash matches. October may be stacked, but it also highlights just how badly heavyweight needs big names to keep things interesting. 6. The Hamzat factor, why he's missing from October. Here's where the speculation comes in. Hamzat said he was willing to fight in October. The UFC passed. Why? Because they know if they throw him in with another average contender, it won't feel special. Instead, they're letting Hernandez and De Ridder fight for the right to challenge him. But that's not all. Insiders believe the UFC is lining Hamzat up for a monster matchup in late 2024 or early 2025, possibly against Pereira or even John Jones if things align. It gets crazier. Imagine Hernandez smashing De Ridder, then calling out Hamzat. That's a fight fans will buy into. And if Hamzat accepts, you've suddenly got one of the biggest middleweight fights in years. UFC isn't just booking fights, they're playing chess, and October is the move that sets up everything else.
Yes, all of that is true. Round 5 of sparring last night before you know, he's supposed to jump on a plane today, splits his eyebrow wide open, and can't fly out there with that. You know what I mean? It would be one thing too if they didn't call us. We would have had him go to a plastic surgeon. One phone call, and I would have announced it hours ago, except I was waiting for the guys to wake up in Abu Dhabi to let them know before we reported it. But these guys that surround these guys down in Brazil just can't keep their mouths shut. You know, this came out of Oliveira's camp apparently, and
You know, they did it in Australia. Now it's in Abu Dhabi. I mean, what a rematch and what a time to do it.
this is how we do it, brother. You know, one fight falls out and we end up making a fight that, you know, it's one of the most anticipated rematches ever in that weight class. So.
All right, guys, I know it's out there. There's some speculation that Ian Gary and Luque is off. It is true. It is. Ian Gary started with the flu that turned into pneumonia. So that fight is off and is not happening. It is true.
7. The big picture. Why October changes everything. Step back and look at the board. UFC Vancouver, UFC Rio, UFC 320th, Aspinall versus Gain. 4 cards in 1 month with each one stacked. Fans have begged for years to see a month where every Saturday mattered. And now, for the first time, Dana White actually delivered. The reason this matters is because October could set a new standard. No more filler months, no more watered-down pay-per-views. But listen to this. November may start just as strong. If UFC 322 lands where it's rumored, we could be looking at a 6-week stretch of non-stop chaos. October might not just be the best month ever, it might be the start of a new era. So here's the bottom line. Dana White didn't just announce fights, he announced a statement. October is a month that fans will talk about for years, the kind of schedule that makes you clear every Saturday night. From Hernandez versus De Ridder to Aspinall versus Gaine, from Figgy's comeback to Mix's redemption fight, this month is wall-to-wall action. And in the shadows, Hamzat Chimaev waits, ready for whoever survives. The only question is, when the dust settles, who's still standing? Will it be Hernandez rising to the occasion, Aspinall cementing himself as king, or Hamzat looming as the final boss? Drop your predictions in the comments because October is going to be unforgettable.